Discipline is the invisible hand that shapes your future. Most people pray for wealth, but they ignore the habits that create it. They dream of success, but they never command their mind to build the routines that lead there. Let me tell you this. If you can't discipline your thoughts, you'll spend a lifetime repairing the damage of undisciplined living. But if you choose daily discipline over daily excuses, you won't have to chase wealth. Wealth will begin to chase you. Most people don't lose to the economy, or to competition, or even to lack of talent. They lose in the quiet battles of the mind. They lose to excuses, to comfort, to the tiny whispers that say tomorrow. Success and wealth don't begin in your wallet. They begin in your head. The world will always pay those who discipline their thoughts, because disciplined thoughts create disciplined routines, and disciplined routines create an unstoppable life. If you can master your mind, you can master your money. And when you master both, success has no choice but to chase you. If there's one thing I've learned about life and wealth, it's this. The mind is the starting point of everything. Before you can build a business, before you can create a fortune, before you can even sustain success, you've got to get control of your own thoughts. Because if you don't, they'll take control of you. Think of your mind like a fertile piece of soil. Soil doesn't care what you plant. It'll grow weeds just as quickly as it grows flowers. Plant weeds of doubt, fear, and negativity, and before long, they'll choke out your dreams. But plant seeds of faith, confidence, discipline, and vision, and over time, that soil will return a harvest so abundant, you'll marvel at it. I remember in my early days, I didn't understand this principle. I let anything drift into my head. Gossip, excuses, negativity, it all found a home in my thinking. And guess what? My life reflected it. I had weeds everywhere. My results matched my mindset. Small, frustrated, and limited. Then one day, I got around people who were thinking differently. They spoke with hope, with belief, with discipline. And I noticed something. Their lives reflected their thoughts too. That's when it hit me. If I wanted a bigger life, I had to start planting bigger seeds. Here's the truth. Success doesn't start with the bank account. It starts with the thought account. The words you whisper to yourself when no one is listening matter. The conversations you have daily matter. The books on your shelf matter. The time you spend on the phone, the shows you binge, the podcasts you choose, all of it is food for the mind. And the mind, like soil, will grow whatever you consistently plant and water. If you're wondering why your life looks the way it does, go back and examine the garden of your mind. So how do you take charge? Awareness is the first step. You have to start paying attention to what you're allowing in, because what you allow in shapes how you think. How you think shapes how you feel, and how you feel drives how you act. And your actions ultimately determine your results. It's a chain reaction that always begins with thought. One practice that changed my life forever was this. Every morning, before the world could rush in with its noise, I took one negative thought that tried to creep in and I replaced it with a positive affirmation about success. If I woke up thinking, I'll never get ahead, I deliberately changed it to, I am building wealth daily and preparing for abundance. It felt awkward at first, even artificial. But here's the secret. Repetition turns affirmations into beliefs, and beliefs turn into results. Slowly, my actions began to follow my new thinking. Instead of procrastinating, I acted. Instead of complaining, I created. That's the discipline. Guard your mind like a fortress. Don't let weeds in. Don't let critics take root. Don't let fear choke your potential. The battle is always in the mind first, and if you win there, you'll eventually win in your finances, your relationships, and your future. Because wealth begins not in your wallet, but in your thoughts. Your environment is shaping you every single day, whether you realize it or not. It's like the air you breathe. You may not notice it, but it's either nourishing you or slowly suffocating you. I often tell people, you can have the best intentions, the strongest goals, even a powerful vision for your life, but if your environment is toxic, it will eat away at your discipline. It's not because you're weak, it's because none of us are strong enough to fight negativity all day and not let it seep into our thinking. I learned this lesson the hard way. In my early years, I was surrounded by people who spent their time complaining about the government, the economy, and their bosses. Their favorite pastime was telling me what couldn't be done. And at first, I thought I was immune to it. I said to myself, I'll keep my goals, and their negativity won't affect me. But little by little, I caught myself complaining too. I started shrinking my dreams, lowering my standards, and making excuses instead of taking action. That's when it struck me. Your environment isn't neutral. It's either pulling you up or dragging you down. That's why guarding your environment is as critical as guarding your wallet. Surround yourself with people who believe in growth, who encourage discipline, who push you to act on your best potential. Spend time in places that inspire creativity and energy rather than drain it. Be mindful of the inputs you feed your mind, whether it's the media you consume, the conversations you entertain, or the habits you normalize. Here's what I discovered. When I began removing toxic influences from my life, even just one at a time, my energy shifted. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but little by little, I found myself thinking clearer, making stronger decisions, and acting with more consistency. One of the greatest decisions I ever made was to swap 1 hour of meaningless chatter for 1 hour of personal development. Instead of sitting with those who gossiped about others, I sat with a good book or listened to someone who had achieved the kind of results I wanted. That one change altered the trajectory of my entire future. Now, don't think of this as cutting everyone out of your life overnight. Start small. This week, identify one negative influence. Maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a person, maybe it's what you're watching or listening to, and remove it. Don't leave the space empty though. Replace it with something that grows you. It could be as simple as listening to a podcast that challenges your thinking, meeting a mentor for coffee, or spending time with someone who's ahead of you in discipline and success. Because your environment is either the soil that allows your discipline to thrive or the poison that kills it slowly. And if you guard your environment, you guard your future. Focus is the master discipline. Without it, all the motivation in the world won't bring results. A scattered mind produces scattered results, while a focused mind produces compounding wealth. You've probably noticed that when you give your full attention to something, even a small task, it gets done better, faster, and with greater satisfaction. But when your attention is split, when you're trying to do 5 things at once, not only does the quality suffer, but the results rarely move you forward. Focus is the force that multiplies effort into achievement. When I started out in business, I made the mistake of scattering my energy. I'd try this opportunity for a week, then chase that one the next. Someone would tell me about a can't-miss idea, and I'd drop what I was working on to pursue it. The result? Nothing stuck. I was always busy, always moving, but I had very little to show for it. It wasn't until I learned to focus, really focus, that my life began to change. I picked a path, committed to it, and put my energy into making it work. That's when progress accelerated. Here's the truth. Distractions are the enemy of discipline. They steal your hours, scatter your energy, and dilute your results. Wealth isn't built by dabbling. It's built by concentrated effort, applied consistently over time. If you want compounding results, you need compounding focus. It's like the difference between sunlight and a laser beam. Sunlight warms, but a laser cuts through steel. The same light, but one is scattered while the other is focused. That's why you need a system to guard your focus. One of the best I've found is what I call the top 3 method. Every morning, before the world grabs your attention, write down the 3 most important tasks that will move your life forward. Not busy tasks, not errands, high-value actions that lead to progress. Then, discipline yourself to complete those before anything else. No emails, no social scrolling, no distractions, just those 3 tasks. Do that every day, and you'll be amazed at how quickly momentum builds. It doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe one of your top 3 today is making a sales call, or putting $100 into your investment account, or reading 10 pages of a wealth building book. Small steps, consistently applied, compound into big results. But only if you focus. Because even the best plan fails without the discipline of concentrated attention. So ask yourself, what are the distractions in your life stealing your focus? Is it television, endless scrolling, or trying to please too many people? Whatever it is, cut it down. Replace it with deliberate, focused effort on what matters most. Because at the end of the day, success doesn't come to the busiest, it comes to the most focused. And if you want to build wealth, start by building the discipline of focus. Discipline in small things creates big results. It's easy to tell yourself, oh, it's just $1, or it's just 15 minutes wasted. But that kind of thinking is exactly what keeps people from ever reaching the life they want. If you cannot be trusted with the small, you won't be trusted with the big. Life has a way of testing us with pennies before it hands us dollars, with small chances before it presents big opportunities. Those who pass the small tests earn more. Those who neglect them stay stuck, wondering why big doors never open. I remember when I was just getting started, I didn't have much. And that was the problem. I treated the little I had like it didn't matter. $1 here, $1 there, skipping a commitment because I thought no one would notice. But here's what I learned. How you treat the little is exactly how you'll treat the much. If you don't respect $1, you won't respect 1,000. If you don't value an hour, you won't value a day. Wealth isn't waiting for you to suddenly get rich so you can develop discipline. Wealth is waiting for you to develop discipline so you can get rich. Think of it like seeds. If a farmer neglects the small seeds, saying these are too tiny to matter, he'll never have a harvest. The big harvest doesn't come from big acts. It comes from planting and nurturing thousands of small seeds day after day. Discipline works the same way. Every dollar, every choice, every little action compounds into a big result over time. That's why I tell people, track everything. Track every dollar you spend this week. Write it down. Don't trust it to memory. Awareness builds discipline. When you see where your money is going, you'll spot the leaks, the little areas where wealth slips away unnoticed. A coffee here, a snack there, subscriptions you don't even use anymore. It's not about the coffee, it's about the pattern. Those small leaks sink big ships. But once you're aware, you can fix them. And fixing them is what prepares you for bigger opportunities. The same goes for time. If you waste small chunks of time, scrolling, gossiping, mindlessly drifting, you won't magically become productive when you get a big project or a big break. Discipline with minutes builds discipline with hours, and discipline with hours builds discipline with days. Before you know it, you've built a disciplined life. And that kind of life attracts opportunity, trust, and eventually wealth. So don't despise the small. Respect it. Treat it like training ground. Discipline in the little creates capacity for the big. If you can show life that you're trustworthy with $1, one opportunity, 1 hour, you'll be amazed at how quickly life will start handing you more. If emotions run your life, they'll ruin your money. That's just how it works. Think about how many times people buy things not because they need them, but because they're trying to feel better. A bad day at work, and suddenly the credit card comes out. A moment of excitement, and they're signing up for something they didn't plan for. Money in the hands of an undisciplined heart disappears faster than you can imagine. But when discipline runs your life, money tends to stay, grow, and multiply. I've met people who made a fortune in a single season, only to lose it in the next. Not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lacked emotional discipline. They let greed tell them to chase the quick deal. They let fear stop them from investing in the right one. They let envy push them into living above their means just to keep up with the neighbors. Wealth was never the problem. Discipline was. Wealth without discipline is like water poured into a cracked pot. It leaks out no matter how much you pour in. What we must learn is the art of responding instead of reacting. A reaction is quick, emotional, impulsive. A response is thoughtful, deliberate, disciplined. Emotional discipline is the ability to pause in the moment, take a breath, and ask, does this serve my long-term goals? That one question can save you from a lifetime of financial regret. The world will constantly tempt you with shiny things, immediate pleasures, shortcuts that promise wealth without work. Emotional discipline says, no, I'm playing the long game. When I was younger, I once spent money I didn't have just to impress people who didn't even care. That was reaction. Later I learned that real wealth doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. And the moment I stopped reacting to every urge and every emotion and started responding with clarity and discipline, my financial life began to change. It's the same principle in investing. Markets go up, markets go down. Most people buy high when they're greedy and sell low when they're scared. Emotional discipline means you stick to your strategy, regardless of how you feel in the moment. That's why those who master themselves often master money, because money doesn't obey feelings, it obeys discipline. So here's something simple you can practice. Before any financial decision, whether it's buying, selling, borrowing, or spending, pause for 10 seconds. Just breathe. Ask yourself, does this align with my long-term goals, or is it just feeding a short-term feeling? That pause creates space for wisdom to step in. That space is where discipline is born. If you can discipline your emotions, you can discipline your money. And if you can discipline your money, you can build a future most people only dream of. Success doesn't chase talent alone. It doesn't chase luck. Success is magnetized to discipline. You see, discipline creates consistency. Consistency creates credibility, and credibility opens doors you couldn't even knock on before. People may admire your charm, they may notice your intelligence, but they will trust your discipline, because trust is built on one thing: predictability. Can you be counted on? Do you do what you say you will do when you say you'll do it? That's the soil where opportunity grows. I learned early in life that without discipline, even the most brilliant ideas remain idle dreams. Discipline is what brings ideas into the real world. It's what makes people take you seriously. I can't tell you how many times opportunities passed by people I knew simply because they had no consistency. They were brilliant in flashes, but unreliable in the long run. Talent may open the first door, but only discipline keeps you inside the room. Success has no time for broken promises or half-kept commitments. Think about it. If you don't trust yourself to follow through on the little things, how can others trust you with the big things? That's why discipline starts with the promises you make to yourself. Wake up when you said you'd wake up. Finish the task you said you'd finish. Make the call you said you'd make. Even the smallest kept promise builds a foundation of self-trust. And self-trust radiates outward. It shows up in your character, in your work, in your reputation. People feel it, and people are drawn to it. I remember once committing to a simple daily reading routine. Just a few pages every day. Nothing dramatic, but day after day, year after year, it added up. Before long, I had read dozens of books, absorbed new ideas, sharpened my mind. What started as a small personal promise turned into a reputation. People began to see me as someone who followed through, someone they could count on for consistency. And that credibility attracted invitations, partnerships, and opportunities that would never have come to someone scattered and unreliable. Now, discipline doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you never stumble. It means that when you stumble, you get back on track immediately. Success isn't attracted to the flawless, it's attracted to the faithful. It's attracted to those who show up, who do the work, who can be counted on. So here's the practical part. Every day, choose one promise to yourself, however small, and keep it. It might be finishing the workout you planned. It might be saving that extra $5. It might be reading those 10 pages. The size doesn't matter. The consistency does. Over time, those daily disciplines compound into credibility. And once the world sees you as credible, opportunities will start looking for you. Because success always trusts discipline. Keep your word, first to yourself and then to others. That's how you become a magnet for success. Most people get caught in the cycle of measuring their lives by income alone. They celebrate the paycheck, they talk about the raise, they post about the bonus. But income is just vanity if wealth doesn't stay. What really tells the story of your financial life is not what you earn, it's what you keep and how it grows. Net worth is the true scoreboard. It's not meant to impress others, but to tell you whether you're moving forward, standing still, or slipping backward. I've met people who made extraordinary amounts of money, yet had almost nothing to show for it. Every dollar that came in went right back out, often faster than it arrived. They measured their lives by the size of their paycheck, but their balance sheets told another story. Debt stacked high, assets non-existent, and stress climbing every month. And then I've met people who earned modest incomes but lived with clarity, intention, and discipline. They tracked their resources, built assets step by step, and over time they quietly became wealthy. Not by accident, but by awareness. See, the discipline of tracking your wealth changes your mindset. When you start writing down your assets, your cash, your investments, your property, and you measure it against your liabilities, your debts, your obligations, you start to see the truth in black and white. Numbers don't lie. If your liabilities keep growing while your assets don't, no income raise in the world can fix that long term. But if your assets steadily grow while your debts shrink, even small incomes can compound into meaningful wealth. I'll tell you, the first time I created a personal balance sheet, it was humbling. I had to face the reality that I was spending more than I thought, that I owed more than I wanted to admit, and that my net worth wasn't impressive at all. But that awareness was the beginning of change. Because you cannot improve what you do not measure. Once I began tracking, even quarterly, I started to see patterns. Places where money leaked. Opportunities where I could save or invest more wisely. Slowly, the numbers turned in my favor. Wealth doesn't show up overnight, and it doesn't show up by accident. It grows through consistent management, measured decisions, and the discipline of paying attention. That's why I say, don't just celebrate income, measure wealth. Because the goal is freedom, not just flash. The goal is security, not just salary. So here's the practical step. Create your own balance sheet. Write down your assets, list your liabilities, and calculate the difference. Do it honestly, and then revisit it every quarter. Watch how the numbers change. Let the growth motivate you, and let the setbacks guide you. This simple practice turns money into a tool you control instead of a force that controls you. Track your wealth, not just your income, because only then will you know if you're truly building a future or just renting one. One of the greatest traps people fall into is buying luxuries before they build assets. The undisciplined mind says, I deserve it now. The disciplined mind says, I'll deserve it later, after my assets pay for it. And that makes all the difference. Because when you buy liabilities first, cars, gadgets, clothes, vacations, you're feeding your appetite, not your future. Those things might bring the moment of satisfaction, but they drain your resources and never return a dime back to you. Assets, on the other hand, have the potential to keep feeding you long after the excitement of a luxury fades away. I remember in my early years, when I first started earning a little more than I needed, the temptation was real. The shiny things called out. But then I learned a principle that changed the way I looked at money forever. Let assets pay for your luxuries. If I wanted a new car, the question wasn't, do I have the money for it? The question was, do I have an asset that can generate enough income to cover it? That shift in thinking turned luxuries from being drains on my wealth into rewards for building wealth. Most people do it backward. They get a raise and immediately inflate their lifestyle. They move into a bigger house, take on a higher car payment, or add more credit card debt. But the disciplined build the foundation first. They take that raise, that bonus, that extra check, and they pour the majority into assets, investments, real estate, businesses, intellectual property. They grow a money tree before they ever sit in the shade of luxury. And here's the beautiful thing. When your assets grow large enough, they start producing cash flow. Dividends, rents, royalties. These become streams of income that arrive without you punching a clock. And when those streams are strong enough, that's when you let them pay for the luxuries. At that point, you're not robbing your future for a temporary thrill. You're letting your future fund your present. That's real financial freedom. I've seen this principle change lives. A young man I once mentored committed that every raise he got, he'd put 70% into assets and only 30% toward lifestyle upgrades. Within a decade, his assets were producing more income than his job, and his luxuries were fully paid for by his investments. He didn't sacrifice joy. He simply delayed indulgence long enough to build a foundation that could support it forever. So here's the challenge. The next time you get a bonus, a raise, or an unexpected windfall, resist the urge to spend it all on pleasures. Commit that 70% goes into assets first. Buy something that can grow, multiply, and return. Then, when the fruit of that investment matures, let it buy your luxuries guilt-free. Build assets before buying luxuries, because the one who plants trees today gets to enjoy shade tomorrow. Wealth is rarely lost because someone doesn't know better. It's usually lost because they don't do better. And the biggest culprit is undisciplined spending, often triggered by emotion rather than reason. Think about it. How many times have people swiped a card not because they needed the item, but because they were bored, stressed, or caught up in the excitement of the moment? Money doesn't vanish in big dramatic acts. Most of the time, it leaks away quietly through impulse. And if we're not disciplined enough to recognize those triggers, we become prisoners of our own emotions rather than masters of our financial destiny. I've always believed that the mind is the true battleground for wealth. If you don't discipline your thoughts and feelings, they'll lead you into decisions that drain your pockets. I've seen people who worked hard all week only to spend their entire paycheck in a weekend because they confused spending with celebrating. Or others who shopped when they were sad trying to buy joy, only to be left with both debt and disappointment. Wealth never survives in that kind of environment. The key is awareness. You must become a student of yourself. Why do you spend? What's driving the decision? Is it need or is it impulse? Is it aligned with your goals or is it sabotaging them? This is where discipline turns into wisdom. If you can identify your triggers, those moments of weakness, you can build strategies to overcome them. For some, it's late night online browsing. For others, it's dining out when stressed or buying the latest gadget to feel significant. Once you spot the pattern, you gain the power to break it. I've advised many people to keep a simple journal of every unnecessary purchase for 30 days. Write down what you bought, why you bought it, and how you felt before and after. The results are eye-opening. Suddenly, you see patterns, emotional spending, cycles that were invisible before. And once you see them, you can begin to replace them. Instead of spending when stressed, maybe you take a walk, read, or call a friend. Instead of buying things to fill boredom, maybe you invest that energy into learning a skill or creating something meaningful. I remember a man who told me he couldn't save money no matter how much he earned. I asked him to try this exercise, and within a month, he realized his stress relief was costing him hundreds of dollars in coffee runs, fast food, and small gadgets he didn't need. Once he saw it clearly, he began redirecting that money into savings and investments. Within a year, the very same money that used to vanish became the seed for his first investment account. That's the power of discipline. It's not about depriving yourself, it's about mastering yourself. It's about recognizing the triggers that steal your future and replacing them with habits that build it. Journal your spending for 30 days, uncover the patterns, and take back control. Discipline your spending triggers, or they will quietly discipline your dreams. One of the great mistakes people make on the road to wealth is believing that growth alone is the answer. They focus on earning more, investing more, and building more, but they forget that what isn't protected will eventually be lost. Imagine pouring water into a bucket full of holes. You can keep adding more, but it will never fill up. Wealth works the same way. If you don't take care of protection, growth becomes an illusion, because every step forward is eventually undone by an unexpected crisis. Life has a way of testing our preparation. The car breaks down, the roof leaks, the company downsizes, or the market shifts. For the undisciplined, these moments wipe out months, sometimes years, of progress. But for the disciplined, those events are bumps in the road rather than roadblocks. Why? Because they built a shield before they built a tower. Protection comes first. If you don't have an emergency fund, you're building on sand. If you don't understand insurance, you're leaving yourself exposed. If you don't manage risk wisely, you'll eventually gamble away the very wealth you work so hard to create. I've often said, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep that matters. And keeping requires safeguarding. One of the simplest, most practical ways to start is with an emergency fund. Put aside 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a safe place, untouchable except for true emergencies. This fund acts as your shock absorber, your first line of defense when life throws the unexpected at you. Without it, every challenge becomes a financial crisis. With it, you gain stability, peace of mind, and the ability to keep building even when storms come. Beyond that, wise protection means learning about tools most people ignore. Insurance, for instance, isn't just an expense, it's a strategy. The wealthy don't see it as wasted money. They see it as transferring risk, shielding themselves from catastrophes that could undo decades of work. Health, life, property, these aren't luxuries, they're foundations. And then there's risk management in investing. You don't have to avoid risk, You just need to respect it, study it, manage it. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Never risk more than you can afford to lose, and always build safeguards into your wealth plan. I once knew a man who built a small fortune in business, but when illness struck, he had no protection. In a matter of months, medical bills consumed years of work. Contrast that with another friend who made far less, but he had an emergency fund, solid insurance, and a conservative investment strategy. When his storm came, he didn't just survive, he kept building. That's the difference. Protection may not feel exciting. It doesn't look glamorous, but it's the foundation that allows growth to last. Without it, you're vulnerable. With it, you're unstoppable. Protect before you grow, or what you grow will never last. One of the easiest traps to fall into on the journey to wealth is believing that more complexity equals more success. More accounts, more subscriptions, more gadgets, more activities. But the truth is, complexity doesn't multiply wealth, it dilutes it. Simplicity is what allows wealth to multiply. When things are simple, you see clearly. When they're complex, you get confused, and confusion always costs money. I remember working with someone who had 5 different checking accounts, multiple credit cards, and subscriptions to things they couldn't even remember signing up for. Every month they felt overwhelmed, but they couldn't see why. The answer was simple. Too much noise, too much clutter. Complexity was bleeding them dry, not because they didn't earn enough, but because they didn't have the discipline to simplify. And here's the lesson. What you don't control will eventually control you. Simplicity is power. It brings focus. It allows you to direct your energy toward what really matters. If you want to multiply, first learn to subtract. Cancel those unused subscriptions. Cut off the financial leaks. Declutter your spending. Most people think their problem is not earning enough when, in reality, their problem is wasting too much. They're busy watering weeds instead of pruning them. The strategy is straightforward. Take a careful look at where your money goes each month. Review your expenses with a critical eye, line by line. Ask yourself, does this truly add value to my life? Or is it just clutter? You'll be amazed at how much of your spending doesn't actually serve you. One lunch here, a streaming subscription there, an unused gym membership, an impulse buy you forgot about, it all adds up. Wealth isn't always about earning more. Often, it's about keeping more. When I first started learning about wealth, I had to discipline myself to cut out things that weren't necessary. It wasn't easy at first, because every expense felt justified in the moment. But once I simplified, my finances became clearer, and my opportunities became greater. The money I saved from clutter was redirected into investments that actually grew. That's the secret. Simplify first, then multiply. The practical step is very simple. This month, go through every expense. Put it under the microscope. Identify at least 3 things that don't bring real value to your life, and cut them out immediately. It might be a subscription you don't use, a convenience you've been paying for without thinking, or a luxury that adds no real joy. Don't underestimate how powerful this is. Small leaks sink big ships, but small cuts can free up big opportunities. Discipline is not about deprivation, it's about direction. By simplifying, you free your resources to multiply. And when you multiply, you step into the kind of wealth that isn't fragile, but durable. Simplify to multiply, because wealth loves clarity, not clutter. Wealth is a powerful tool, but without discipline, it is fragile and fleeting. Too many people spend their lives chasing comfort, only to realize at the end that wealth without purpose is hollow. True wealth is not only about living well, but leaving well. The question isn't just what kind of life am I building, but also what kind of legacy am I leaving? Discipline is what ensures your wealth doesn't just serve you today, but continues to serve others tomorrow. I've met people who worked hard, made plenty, but left behind little more than memories of consumption. They lived well, but didn't leave well. Why? Because they lacked the discipline to think beyond their own lifetime. Legacy doesn't happen by accident. It's the product of disciplined choices repeated over decades. If you can discipline yourself to save, to invest, to protect, and to give while you're alive, then your wealth can continue to work even after you're gone. Think of wealth like a garden. If you only consume the fruit, the garden dies with you. But if you plant, nurture, and prepare it for the next generation, then your children, your family, your community, maybe even the world, continues to enjoy the harvest long after you're gone. Discipline is the act of planting for seasons you will never see. That's what turns money into meaning. The strategy is simple. Align your money habits with a vision that outlives you. Don't just build wealth for bigger houses or faster cars. Build wealth for education funds, charitable projects, family businesses, or investments that keep paying dividends for decades. Discipline is what keeps you from spending it all on short-term gratification. Discipline reminds you that $1 invested wisely today can still be feeding, teaching, or helping someone 50 years from now. I once wrote out what I wanted my wealth to mean. Not just numbers on paper, but the story behind the numbers. I ask myself, when I'm gone, what will my money say about me? Will it say I consumed, or will it say I contributed? That's where discipline steps in. Because without discipline, money will always drift toward consumption. With discipline, money can be directed toward contribution. The practical step is this. Write a simple one-page legacy plan. Nothing complicated, nothing formal, just one page about how you want your wealth to serve others beyond your lifetime. It could be a scholarship fund, a trust for your children, or a donation to a cause that shaped your life. Writing it down brings clarity, and clarity creates discipline. Discipline is the bridge between wealth and legacy. Anyone can make money, but it takes discipline to transform money into meaning, and meaning into something that lasts. Discipline doesn't just let you live well, it ensures you also leave well. When it comes to building wealth, it's easy to get caught up in numbers, charts, and balance sheets. But wealth has never been only about money. It has always been about what kind of person you become in the process. Because let's be honest, money is simply a reflection of your philosophy, your discipline, your daily habits, and your vision for the future. You don't just earn money, you attract it by the person you are becoming. If you become valuable, disciplined, and intentional, money won't just follow you, it will chase you. The foundation of wealth begins in the mind. A poor philosophy will keep you broke no matter how much money passes through your hands, while a rich philosophy will find ways to multiply even the smallest seed. That's why I've always said, it's not what happens that determines your life, it's what you do about what happens. The marketplace pays for value, not time. Life rewards discipline, not wishes. And the future belongs to those who plant consistently, water faithfully, and wait patiently for the harvest. Now, some of you may have big dreams. You see yourself wealthy, free, generous, maybe even influential. That's good. But remember this, dreaming big without acting daily is just fantasy. It's the little disciplines, saving a small percentage, reading 10 pages, making one call, building one connection, that compound into great fortunes over time. Don't despise small beginnings. Every oak tree began as an acorn. Every fortune began as a decision. And every legacy began with someone who dared to discipline their mind and act daily. But let me also remind you, wealth without purpose is empty. To have money and no meaning is to live well but leave nothing behind. So ask yourself, why am I building wealth? What story do I want my money to tell after I'm gone? If the answer is only to buy things, then you've missed it. True wealth is about contribution, about leaving behind more than you consumed, about building bridges others can cross long after you're gone. Discipline ensures your wealth doesn't just fade with your last breath, but multiplies into a legacy that speaks for generations. So here's my call to action, starting today. Discipline your mind. Guard your thoughts like treasure, because they are. Plant seeds of abundance, possibility, and responsibility. Discipline your habits, because wealth is built on what you do consistently, not occasionally. Discipline your money, because unmanaged money always slips away. And finally, discipline your purpose. Know why you're building, so when wealth arrives, it finds meaning. If you'll do that, if you'll think rich, act daily, and build with patience, you won't just live a good life, you'll leave a great one. Wealth will follow you, freedom will surround you, and your story will inspire others to rise. The choice is yours. Start small, stay disciplined, and let your wealth journey begin today.